So you started the brand at 26.
Something like that, yeah.
How do you, at 26, how do you go from being a 26-year-old ski bum snowboarder to having one of the most recognisable snow companies in Australia?
Well, it just happens overnight like that, Joseph.
Yes, yeah.
And here we are, you know. No, it was a very long, slow process. And it is just a lot of trial and error and just like having a crack. Like I was doing seasons back to back between Japan and Bulla, and I wanted to keep doing seasons forever. And I wanted to do something while I was doing it. So I was kind of like looking around and doing other things at the same time. And then it also just happened to be the time that tall hoodies were a huge thing and a trend, but the major brands hadn't really cottoned onto it. So you couldn't actually go into a shop and buy a tall hoodie. They were not a thing. So there were a few people like just making them because it was like this new trend. And so there was a season at Bulla and there was a dude doing it. And I tried to get one, I couldn't do it. Couldn't get one. Then my buddy was coming back from Canada and he was like, oh, I'm gonna make a tall hoodie. I'm like, bro, you should fucking make heaps of them. I tried to get one, couldn't get one. And he's like, oh, I think I'm gonna make 5. And I'm like, dude, you'll sell them, like just make a shitload.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he comes back to Oz. We go down to Spotlight, get a bunch of fabric, get his mum's sewing machine out, a box of VBs, and then we sewed up like the first hoodies.
And did you know how to sew at that point already, or were you just botching it?
No, I mean, like I think I'd done like a thing in class in school of like how to sew, but no, absolutely not. We just went down and got like at Spotlight, there was like a pattern for a hoodie, and then we just added like this much on at the bottom. And then we had like, there's a photo of it, put it in the video or whatever, and it was kind of like everything was bright as hell.
Highlighter.
Yeah. And so the first one I made was like, you know, different color arm and this and that, and then had like fluoro tiger print fluffy stuff on the pocket and in the hood, and it was, you know, the rudest thing going around, but it was so sick at the time, I thought.
And did the first ones hold up, or?
I mean, yeah, like I still have one. I was going through some stuff the other day. Obviously, I haven't worn it for a long time, but yeah, there's still one there. And then I was talking to Nick Jack just then in Freeride, and he's still got like some of the OG ones. But yeah, they're still around, but they were very like rudimentary. They're obviously not made as well as, you know, the hoodies we make now, and but yeah, they still held up for sure.
So what was the first thing that you ever made?
Well, the first thing that we ever made as Yuki threads was actually the beanies, and they were the bird beanie that's still in. That was a bird beanie, which is still in the range now, has been in the range since day dot. And yeah, but that was by mistake because we had designed a bunch of hoodies and crew necks, and that was like the main thing. And then we did some beanies on the side, but then the beanies rocked up before the hoodies. And if I knew anything about marketing back then, I would, you know, you could have said that I planned this and it was a great thing, but I absolutely did not. But it actually worked out sick because we're selling them around Bulla and they've got a little yellow bird on them. And so no one had seen that before, but then we sold a whole bunch to our friends and whatnot. So then everyone was walking around with these yellow birds on their heads. So by the time it came for the hoodies and the crew necks to actually rock up, everyone had kind of heard about this little bird and this little brand and all of this kind of stuff. So when we first like had the first night selling them in the back of the Kooroora, everyone already kind of knew what they were. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't mean it to be like a marketing thing, but it actually turned out real great. But that stuff happens all the time in business, I guess.
Yeah. And the little yellow bird, why pick a canary?
Well, it's not actually a canary. Where that comes from is Nick Hallam, shout out Nick, one of my best mates. He did the initial branding for us, and I sent a bunch of photos to him that Lani and I had put together. And one of the photos was a photo of power lines, just with a bird on it. And I sent it to him because I was like, I want it to be nice and clean, you know, straight, like clean lines and all of this kind of stuff. And that's why I sent it to him. But he actually grabbed the bird off there and then used that bird for the initial logo. And then it just so happened to be yellow. It's not actually a canary. And a lot of people ask me about this over time, like, what does a bird mean and all this kind of stuff. And I'd love it to mean something great. And like, you know, there was a time I'm like, oh, maybe we'll like, you know, the bird means freedom and adventure and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know, I can't get behind just kind of making up a story that's not real for a logo. So it's kind of like the bird's just a bird. Like, does it mean anything?
Yeah.
It just means Yuki, but I guess it just means what Yuki means to whoever is interacting with the brand, right?
Yeah, you see the bird and you know. When you first started making things, I mean, it's always scary to put yourself out there and make anything, especially when you're trying to get other people to have any interest in it. Were the first sort of products received quite well, or what was the initial vibe around Yuki when you first started it?
Well, it was actually kind of wild, and because it had come from like this really cool scene of like handmade hoodies. So like Lani was making hoodies under a little brand called MLK, and then our friends Dozzy and Krista were making them, and it was called Joy Out. And they were all custom. So like everyone was coming in and being like, yeah, I want this like pink hood and this blue body and these yellow arms, or like, you know, I remember Lani had this sewing machine that would do like stitch embroidery, so you could do like star stitching over stuff. And it was like, it was really cool because it was like so expressive. Like everyone would just come in and be like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do this. And she'd have them over and like have a glass of wine and be like, I've got this fabric and this fabric. And like, you know, it was like this full thing. Like it was so sick. And then, so that was kind of like the previous year. So then when we started Yuki, there was kind of like already this culture and kind of like these hoodies and like expressive kind of hoodies and stuff like that. And people were like really behind that. So when we brought out the hoodies that we made in those first years, they were actually pretty pared back and stuff like that. But there was already a lot of support from the community of like, you know, from our friends who had seen like, you know, the crew making handmade hoodies. And then when we kind of did this, like, I feel like we already had so much support from like all the crew and the community in Mount Buller that like everyone was just frothing from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like this new thing, and there wasn't like just brands popping up everywhere and stuff like that. So it was something different. And I think I don't know, but I think like it kind of felt like everyone was kind of proud to have like this brand from Buller and that their mates were doing. And I feel like it was like everyone was just so stoked about it. And yeah, just really hyped to see something happen and to be part of something, you know, because I mean, like, yeah, we made some products, but I mean, like, without the people to back it and actually be part of it and come and support and all that kind of stuff, well, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. Like, the people build the brand as much as the brand builds the brand, in my opinion.
And what year was that? That
was 2011. which was that first kind of year of product.
Uh-huh.
We started like late 2010 when Lani and I were like, okay, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
And then the first season was 2011.
And how deep into seasons were you at that point?
Only a couple of years. So like, yeah, I grew up in Mansfield and started snowboarding then, but then moved away from Mansfield to Albury, and then from Albury to Perth. I was a mechanic by trade, and then was just doing that thing over there until I was like 24. And then when I was 24, I think, I moved to Whistler. I did my first season and then was like, I'm not going back to the real world.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not being a mechanic anymore.
Yeah.
Not as much as I'd liked. I, like growing up as like a little kid, I always saw like, you know, snowboarding and people snowboarding, and I was just like, that is literally the coolest thing. But we were not very wealthy growing up, so it wasn't like a sport that I could just do and just like go on the weekends and whatnot. So I ended up getting an ex-rental board from Pullens, from Chumpy Pullens family. Like got an ex-rental board. It was a Rosignol corn board.
Oh.
And some old Northwave boots, which were basically Sorels. And then $150 for the setup.
Wow.
And then, yeah, I used to go up on Thursdays with the school, like with Mansfield Secondary College, and we would come up and you'd have like a lesson in the morning, free ride in the afternoon. And basically that was my only real time that I would go up. I think I went up on maybe 1 or 2 weekends, but through the school it was like $40 for the whole day kind of thing. But if you went up on the weekend, then it was like full price lift ticket and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up snowboarding a little bit, but probably not as much as I would like to, but it was like, I loved it. And you know, there was like kids that would leave school and then come up and be a lifty, and like there was a time there I was just like, those guys are like the fucking coolest people on the planet, because you'd go up for your day on a Thursday and you'd see crew and they'd be like pulling teeth. You're like, fuck, that dude's so cool.
Like kids that you used to go to school with, and all of a sudden
Yeah. And they'd left and they're up there, and I'm just like, fuck, you guys are so sick.
Yeah.
Ferguson, I remember he just rolling down Burke Street and like did just this front one, and I was just like, fuck, that is the coolest thing ever.
Was he wearing a tall hoodie?
Nah, this was pre that. But I was just like, you know, this like the front one, like not even a thing, but I was just like, man, that's like the sickest thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sick.
So starting a business and starting a brand is never easy, and it's got to come with its trials and tribulations. What's the biggest mistake that you made throughout the lifetime of the company? What's one thing that you did that you look back on and it just could have absolutely flattened the whole thing?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, without a doubt, it is what we ended up calling the ugly fruit, and actually the community saved us once again, which we'll get to that. That's the end point. But like, so there was a time when we started, I didn't know anything about anything.
Yeah. And
we just started making products. And they were all just made out of like conventional cotton. We didn't really know where the fabric came from. Like I knew where the fabric came from because I went over and sourced it with our manufacturers, and I'm like, oh yeah, it comes from down the road here. They're the fabric people. But then when I asked them, just like, oh yeah, where do they get it from? Like they didn't know. And I'm like, well, I think we should probably know where it comes from, because, you know, what if it comes from a bad place, and what is it? It's like child labor and or like all of this kind of stuff involved in that.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sparked the whole change of like moving from just making products, because I didn't know, or we didn't know any better, to be like, oh cool, we need to actually make responsible products and change our processes and stuff like this. And so then we changed to like fair trade, organic cotton, and all of these things, which is awesome. And then in that process, I also kind of, I guess, like pushed the envelope and kind of went maybe a little bit too far. Probably not enough testing, really. And essentially what I wanted to do, because I was like, organic cotton is awesome, but you still need to grow the cotton. You still use all the water, all the natural resources to grow the cotton. And I'd found out that, you know, you can actually use recycled cotton. And I was like, oh, how? Like, maybe we can use recycled cotton and recycled PET, and then it would be like, you would be saving so many resources. Like, we should do this. And then so we did that. And when we actually came to like bulk production and finished bulk production, when we'd got the products, we found out that the fleece on the inside of the hoodies was shedding, and it was loose, and it was okay after like 5 washes, but it's just like, well, we can't sell this kind of thing. And so I was like, what the fuck do we do? Oh, and I found out this information on my birthday. But it was literally like, we were like predominantly a hoodie company, and all of our hoodies for the whole season were this, and basically fucked.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know what to do. And then in the end, we just created the Ugly Fruit campaign. I was just like, you know, we've got all these hoodies. They're good, but they're not perfect, but they're still good to go. And we can't possibly, like, we couldn't waste them and be like, you know, let's throw them in the dump, or let's do this or whatever. Like, all the time and energy from everyone that had put in, like from design to the people making the fabric to the people cut and sew, like the whole thing, I'm just like, these have got to be used. So then we just told the story exactly straight up to our community and just said, hey, this is what's up. They're still good. They're not perfect, but they're still good. Like the whole Ugly Fruit thing, like they've got some bumps and bruises kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, instead of selling them for like $160 or whatever, we sold them for 60. And yeah, the whole community got around us. We like pretty much sold all of them in, I don't know, like a week or something. And without that, 100% we would have been like out of business.
Really?
We would have been gone.
Wow.
Yep. Hundo. Like that was the biggest challenge, and and literally the people pulled us through. So that's why, like, when I talk about, I'm just like, you know, we've done this thing again, like, you know, we made this product, but even back in the day, it's like the people bought it. Like if people didn't buy it, we wouldn't be here. Yeah. And then that is just like, hey, we fucked up massively. But it's still kind of good, and it's the people that came in and saved us and kept the company going, you know? And then that's why, like, so these days when we're just like, you know, we're a community-focused company, so like this whole thing has been through our journey, like the whole way. It's always been like this, from day dot, from like, you know, selling hoodies out of boxes in the pub and all of this kind of stuff to our friends, to like, you know, the community saving our ass kind of thing. And so that's why it's just like, you know, for us, like doing days like Yuki birds and stuff like that, it's just like, it's this relationship that we have. It's like, you know, it's just like this give take between us and them. And
yeah,
it's kind of like, I guess that's a good relationship in my mind.
And something that's kept the brand going.
Yeah.
So when did you know that it was something that you could do full time, that it was more than this little hoodie making side gig that you had going? What was the point that you said, yeah, this is it, we're doing it, and you just went all in?
Yeah, that's kind of like an interesting one, because there was like at least like the first 4 years I was like working 2 or 3 jobs, doing Yuki on the side, kind of doing seasons and all this kind of stuff. And I guess like for me, I guess in those days I didn't have this massive plan. It was just kind of like I was just like doing it. And I guess there was like one summer that I didn't do a season, and we did some products that we made for like another company, like a Buy Yuki thing. And I think there was going to be like 15 grand or whatever, which is funny now. but I'm just like, okay, cool. Like that's enough money for me to kind of like go all in and like get through this little bit. And I was just like, fuck it, I'll do it and see what happens. But it's kind of funny because it's going and it's been going so long for now that I'm still like, it's still like in my mind, like this little thing. Yeah. And I still kind of like look at it and be like, oh yeah, I guess like I'm doing it. Yeah. So like, I think like for me, I'm just like, I still feel like I'm in like startup mode and still like, are we doing it? It's just like, oh yeah, we're doing it kind of thing. But I haven't reached this thing of like, oh yeah, we're crushing it. Yeah. And like, yeah, I got this. This is like, you know, we're killing it. I'm just going to chill and all this kind of stuff. I mean, like holidays and everything are still few and far between and all of this kind of stuff. But I guess I should come back. It's probably about, that 5th year or so. And I kind of made the jump and was like, oh yeah, cool. But yeah, kind of since then is still just like, I'm doing it, or like we're doing it, but it's not like, you know, we're like, we've made it kind of thing or something like that.
So we're behind the new Kooroora, which would have been the old Kooroora when you worked there. Was that your main job when you worked up here at Bulla? Yeah, so the first season, actually like, this used to all be like the back of the staff accom, like the back of the pub. Oh, really?
And there'd be like a back door that was never open. But naughty stuff used to go in and out of there. And then like this is like, the back of the pub and all like the staff accom and stuff like that. But yeah, so when I first got here, like first season, I worked at Grimace with Hans Grimace back in the day, and I was in the rental shop because I'd done a season in Whistler in retail rental there, and then came back here, got a job there, and then I actually got a job part-time as a bussy in the pub that season. And then after that season, I worked full-time in the pub as a bussy because I quickly worked out that working nights is better than working days because then I can snowboard during the day. Yeah. And then so here was basically like where the pub was. Probably went out to like a fair bit further over there. But the pub was like an institution. And like I never realized how much a place can have such an impact on a town of like, because it was like the meeting point. It was like everyone's lounge room. Yeah. It was just like, because everyone's in like small accommodations and stuff like that. But you could go past here and there was like the members section at the front, like everyone's sitting at the bar, and then there was like the buck hunter, and then out the back the pool, and then the restaurant and stuff. And it's just like any time of the day, you'd know who was probably going to be there. So if you're like, oh yeah, you know, Yuki might be there, or like McPhail might be there, or whoever, and you're just like, oh yeah, I'll duck in and, you know, have a game of buck with McPhail. You'd be like, obviously walk in, he'd be like, 9 times out of 10, you'd know he'd be there, or someone, you know, doing that thing. And then, I guess like when it got torn down, you know, it just changed the dynamic of the town. And obviously now it's changed and it's different and that's all good, but it was crazy that, this little wooden box kind of thing had such a big impact on the whole place. But yeah, that was where, so in that second year when I was working there full time, that was when that's where we launched Yuki. So I spoke to Nicole, who was like the manager of the pub, and she knew what was going on. I'm like, I'm gonna have like a heap of boxes and stuff, and I wanna, you know, do a night to sell them. And she's like, yeah, no worries. So I was just like, cool, like on this day, whatever, 4 o'clock. I must have put, there was signs up, like actual signs, like stuck around town. And Facebook was a thing, so I think there was a thing there. But like, it was this thing of like 4 o'clock on Tuesday or whatever, we'd, you know, go there and do the thing. sell them up the back. And so I remember I went there and had like all of these boxes, and I even had a cash till that I didn't, but I had this, and I had a printer to print receipts and like all this shit, which obviously I didn't use. But I remember walking in, and there was like all these people like in the pub, and I was like, wow, there's a heap of people here for like this time of day or whatever. And I didn't actually click that they were there for that. And then, yeah, turns out they were there for that. And like I said before, like all the yellow bird beanies and all of this kind of stuff, I think there was like enough talk around town. And I'd kind of like done the maths of like the amount that we would have to sell to make our money back. Because my whole thing was like, oh, well, you know, I've saved some money, or Lani and I had saved some money from the season in Japan. We're just like, cool, this is how much it's going to cost. This is how much we need to sell to kind of break even. Like, fuck it, let's do it kind of thing. And I kind of worked all that out, and then, yeah, we made that money back in the first night, and it was wild. There was like all these people, and like everyone just pulling shit out of boxes, and like everyone was hyped, and yeah, it was like so sick. I think we did 2 nights or 2 afternoons or whatever, but that first night was like, I was blown away, and I was just like, holy shit, like this is so cool.
What was the first step towards actually producing the hoodies in a viable quantity?
Yeah, so like first step, I actually looked at like getting one of my friend's mums to do it, because she was like a seamstress, and that would have been done in Australia, which would have been sick and all that kind of stuff. But then I was just like, realistically, this can't scale kind of thing. So I didn't do that. But then there was also like my friend Charlie had like a t-shirt thing that was called Obvious, which is also at Bulla. But he was more interested in throwing parties, I think. But he was getting them done in Bali, and he's like, yeah, it's like super sick. Like, you go there and there's like chickens running through the factory, and you know, just talking about the guy, and he doesn't get back to him. I'm just like, that sounds terrible. And then he's like, but you know, like you can't go to China because like the minimums are like 3,000 pieces and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, I don't know about that. I'm going to give it a crack. So then I just like jumped online, found this thing called Alibaba, which is obviously huge now, but back in the day, it wasn't. And then kind of just jumped on there and started talking to people. And then turns out like the first person I started talking to was like our first manufacturer that we manufactured for 4 years, until we kind of went down the road of like being, going down the organic cotton and like ethical kind of, not that that wasn't ethical, those folks. I'd been to the factory, but they didn't actually have the certificates, because it's all well and good for you to be like, no, they're sweet, I know them, but you know, you got to have the proof. And so, yeah, so like I jumped online. 5 hours later, I was talking to them, and we manufactured with them for years, but like I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. Like I remember the first conversations with them. And Jody was like, cool, so you want thick fleece? That's great. And she's like, what GSM do you want? And then I remember I literally had to like open another tab and be like, what is GSM? And then work out like, you know, what she was like asking me, and just like totally bluffing my whole way through it. And I'm just like, I don't know. So I just went to like, a website. I'm just like, what GSM is this? I'm like, okay, cool. So let's make it like 100 grams heavier then. Cool. And like all of this kind of stuff. But it was like full winging it. And it's just like, that's what the whole process has kind of been from day dot. It's just like, okay, cool. Got to do this thing. I don't know how. So I'm just going to go and find out and try. And I think like, you know, that's just how you do stuff, I guess.
The same process for even other things that you do nowadays, like design and learning to use tools like Illustrator and throughout the creative process? Did you have any like formal learning with that, or?
No, I haven't had anything like in regards to like training and stuff like that. I've been part of like business groups and some digital marketing groups and stuff like that, but in regards to like actually learning how to do stuff and figuring things out, like it's just, I learn by doing. So it's more of just like, cool, I need to do this thing. Does somebody know how to do it? I'll ask some questions and be like, hey, how do you do this thing? And they'll kind of point me in the direction. Like say with Illustrator and design, it's just like, when I first started, I was literally using paint and like going pixel by pixel to change these tech packs that like a friend had made for me in Illustrator, but I didn't even know what Illustrator was. So then I would get them and go pixel by pixel to like change the design and all of this kind of stuff. And then my mate Nick, who I was talking about, who did all the branding and stuff, he's like, oh, here, dude, this is Illustrator. Like, welcome to 2010 or whatever it is back then. And then it was just like, yeah, just kind of learn by doing. And it was just like, you know, I got to do this thing. How do I do this? And then you build on top of that and on top of that and all that kind of thing. And I guess like that's just the way that I have progressed through all of the things, whether it be like a business thing or a product thing or anything else.